You've probably heard this line before. The sinking of the Titanic was a tragedy for humans. But for the lobsters in the kitchen, it was a miracle of life. But here's the reality. If that lobster actually existed, its miracle probably didn't last more than 5 minutes. Before we try to save it, let's clear up one thing first. Was there really lobster on the Titanic? I checked every Titanic menu we still have today, and unfortunately, none of them directly list lobster. So, end of the story. Not quite. Besides the fixed menus, the Titanic also had a French a la carte restaurant, where passengers could order dishes that didn't appear on the main menu. I found images of that restaurant's menu, and based on that, we can say this with reasonable confidence. Yes, there were lobsters on board. So now the question becomes, what kind of lobster are we talking about? The Titanic's route was Southampton, France, Ireland, North Atlantic, New York. And if you look at how seafood was traded in 1912, there's really only one realistic answer. The American lobster. You know the big ones you see in restaurant tanks? So how was it kept alive on the ship? Back in 1912, storing live lobsters was pretty brutal. Most likely, their claws were tied shut, and they were kept in water tanks. That alone was already problem number one. But let's be fair for a moment. Let's give this lobster a buff. Let's assume, the night before the sinking, the chef had already untied it. Then, the disaster hits. At 2:18 a.m., the Titanic breaks apart. 2 minutes later, it's gone. The lobster is finally free. And then, it falls straight into the North Atlantic. Challenge number 2, temperature and salinity. Let's start with the good news. The salinity of the North Atlantic at that time was pretty similar to the American coastline. So salinity, not a problem. The bad news is the temperature. That night, the water was about -2 degrees Celsius. That's deadly for humans, and it's just as deadly for Atlantic lobsters. Yes, they're cold water animals, but they're not ice water animals. At that temperature, they lose body heat very fast, go into shock, and die. But what if it didn't freeze immediately? Then it runs into an even bigger problem. Lobsters are not fish. They can't swim up and down. All they can really do is crawl along the seabed in shallow water or make short, powerful bursts with their muscles. Now here's the problem. The Titanic sank at a depth of 3,800 meters. American lobsters normally live somewhere between 5 and 50 meters. Even the most extreme record only puts them at around 480 meters. So what does 3,800 meters mean? It's like stacking 30 heavy battle tanks on top of its shell. Honestly, its chances of survival in a desert would be higher. Either it sinks on its own, or it clings to the wreck and goes down with it. Either way, the ending is the same. The pressure kills it. What about the other food in the kitchen? Like oysters. That's even worse. If there were oysters on board, the most likely species would be Ostrea adalis, the European flat oyster. They were in an even more hopeless situation than the lobster. They don't have legs. At least the lobster could struggle a bit. Oysters can only do one thing. Sink. They might survive -2 degrees Celsius water for a short time, but during the descent, they would still die from pressure changes. It sounds harsh, but this is the truth. The middle of the North Atlantic is a death zone for any coastal species. In the sinking of the Titanic, there was no such thing as a lucky lobster. That famous line survived for a century not because it's true, and the reality is, in that dark, freezing water, 3,800 meters below the surface, there were no miracles.